Hey guys, Kyle, the Dead Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for Eden Zero, Chapter 47. Alright, so I may as well start this review by addressing the big question about this chapter, which is, was the fight underwhelming? And my simple answer is, not really. Because, obviously, like I said last chapter, this particular Valkyrie was pretty much a clone, and well, it was a replica, a clone, and so obviously the clone wouldn't be as strong as the original, but Mashima still did exploit that loophole enough in order to give us a nice little in order to understand that this Valkyrie is a lot weaker than the original, but still powerful enough in order to give us a nice little tease about how strong Valkyrie herself, like the real Valkyrie, actually is. Now, do I still wish we could have gotten more of the fight? Obviously, yes, but I understand the circumstances of it, and I feel the more important thing to understand about this chapter is that while the fight wasn't perfectly handled, which with Mashima, his fights are rarely, if ever, perfectly handled, but the thing to understand about this chapter is that while the fight wasn't perfect, it still gave development to Homura's character. Like I think that's the one thing I can always kind of give Mashima is that even if the fights themselves are lackluster, he pretty much seems, at least within Zero, to have an understanding of using the fights in having the of presenting the fights in a way where it pushes the characters forward and it develops their character. That's from that's the big takeaway from his fights is that they always have this focus of developing the character. So I can I can at the very least appreciate that. Um and yeah, and of course and the backstory and any kind of gaps I pretty much felt that I pretty much felt that the fight itself had. I think the backstory we got in this chapter it pretty much felt it managed to fill in managed to fill in any of those blanks really for me. Um, but yeah, let's talk about the backstory itself because this is definitely one of those times where Mashima is definitely taking influence from Urza's backstory and just the whole Tower of Heaven lore in general, and just the whole Tower of Heaven stuff. Even though the Tower of Heaven isn't like he isn't directly taking from it, but he is taking. You can see the influence of the Tower of Heaven stuff in there in this backstory. But one thing I do like with this backstory is that it's sort of explored as a what if scenario where Urza was never a slave and actually saved Kagar from pretty much being one because I think that's kind of the role that Valkyrie kind of has in this backstory is that she's pretty much pretty much she's kind of pretty much the Prince Urza who came in and saved Homura from pretty much being a slave like it even said so itself that they were planning to sell her to pretty much Gilst as a Gilst as who knows what, and then Valkyrie comes in and saves her from even saves her from pretty much ever experiencing that life to begin with. So it's kind of a what if scenario in that sense, um, but. Even taking out the influence and the similarities between the two backstories. The one important thing I think the one merits I think the one bit of merit I think we can give this backstory for sure, and it is an important bit of merit is that we get to understand exactly who Homura was. Who Homura was and basically how she grew up. Like we basically get this whole thing get this whole backstory of pretty much how she pretty much grew up on a world where like even kids it doesn't matter how young they are expected to fight, and that in itself is pretty heavy stuff. But and I'm sure in most cases on that world, like I think most kids, even most kids, I think would probably adapt to that environment. But with Homura, like we get the sense in this backstory that Homura herself wasn't always confident or even a badass. Homura herself, growing up, you could see Homura was just kind of an average, normal girl and very timid. And and with Homura, it wasn't until she actually met Valkyrie that she pretty much even started to become like more confident and as more confident and more skilled and just overall just the warrior that we basically we pretty much know her as today. The only thing that never really went away really was how she was how pretty much was basically how pretty much shy she is, like the whole shyness that's pretty much the one thing we can take away that kind of kept with Homura is that is that the shyness kind of stayed. The only thing that I definitely like how, but I definitely appreciate how this backstory, it shows that Homer herself, she wasn't as much of a badass she wasn't always a badass, like she wasn't born a badass. She pretty much had to develop and come in. She had to have Valkyrie there as a mentor and as a teacher in order to gain her confidence and become the warrior that we know her as today, which I think in its own way is enough of a difference in order is good enough of a difference in order to say, yeah, this is, or at least it's enough of a difference than someone else's backstory we know. Like, yeah, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you, Urza. But like, don't get me wrong, Urza, love her backstory, but Urza was always even as a kid, Urza always seemed a little too perfect. But with this one, it treats. But overall, what I'm saying is that with Homer's backstory, it treated her as a kid first, and then she came into her own. That's what I appreciate about this backstory, I guess. So going back to the fight itself, like I said, it was executed well enough, with the exception that I just wanted a little more of it. However, there was one, and like I said, again, because this Valkyrie was a clone, it wasn't. I didn't expect the fight to be long, but I just expected it to at least last for basically another half a chapter at least, I guess. But for what we got, it was good enough. Let's put it that way. And one thing, and there was but having said that, there was one moment that really, having said that, and these are, I guess, having said that, there was one moment that in the chapter that really made me appreciate it as a whole, which was Homer's line about how if the replica Valkyrie was her real teacher, then Homer's whole dragon flash move wouldn't even worked. So that line even whatever you have to say about the fight itself, I think that line works. That one line in itself worked just in the way of saying to us that the Valkyrie got in that flashback is much more powerful than this replica. Like the replica itself, it was just like nothing more than a pale imitation, at least compared to Valkyrie's true power. So, yeah, I think this is one thing we have to look. We can definitely look forward to, that even though this imitation was obvious, this clone was obviously a disappointment. Like Valkyrie herself is probably going to be on definitely a whole other level, or definitely stronger at the very least, or stronger compared to this, or at least stronger compared to her clone. That's for sure. Like way stronger. And with this fight over, I believe the crew is going to be able to. I think this, from what I understand, that this was like the last fight in this little mini tournament. So now I believe the crew is going to be able to in order to learn the location of the actual Valkyrie now, assuming that from Zhao Mei even keeps her promise. But the whole thing, I really want to know if this fight was the last one, is what exactly they had or have to give up in order to make this happen, to make this whole prediction, in order to make this this foresight, in order to make this foresight thing happen. Because initially in this whole thing, like, Mashima definitely played it up initially as them needing to give up something in return for the information on Valkyrie, but ever since then he hasn't really given, like, unless he's hidden it very well within these chapters, he hasn't really given any sense of what exactly it is that pretty much the crew themselves need to give up. Like, he hasn't really given us anything to work with as to what exactly they basically need to give Zhao Mei in return for her, in order for her power to locate Valkyrie. So I just hope whatever Mashima is building up to is worth it, and whatever they need to give up, it won't be too underwhelming, because that's kind of the thing I've always learned with Mashima, is that his payoffs are where his payoffs with stuff are his weakest when it comes to his storytelling. So, or sometimes, for the majority of the time, be his weakest points. So, I mean, so I hope whatever it is that pretty much basically Zhao Mei asks for in return is something kind of like worth the equivalent exchange price, I guess you could say. And in fact, this could be just my wishful thinking. In fact, I don't think he'd even go this far, knowing him, but I would like for Mashima to make it where each one of the crew of the Eden Zero almost needs to give up a couple of years of their lifespan in order for Zhao Mei to locate Valkyrie. Again, dark, I know, and I don't think he'll do it, but it would kind of make, in order for them pretty much needing to give up at least a little bit of their lifespan, it would make sense in context of Zhao Mei's, like, title and name. So, yeah. But, yeah, guys, that's my review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Crunchyroll. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.